On this episode, we talk about the Herrera Esteli Miami by Drew Estate. We introduce a new cigar ranking system which will change the entire world. We're looking forward to introducing it to you. Burn Line Podcast. The burn line on a well-crafted cigar is straight and sharp as a razor, much like our wit and wisdom. And welcome everybody to Burn Line Podcast. I'm your host, John Thacker Jr.
And I am your host, Nicholas McCann.
Nicholas, good morning.
Good morning, John.
And as usual, I am drinking coffee with the cigar I'm about to smoke. So what do we have this morning?
Yeah, I'm an avid listener to the podcast. I know your next question is going to be, what are we drinking, right?
What are we drinking?
Lincoln's Blockade by River Bottom Roasters.
Shout out to River Bottom Roasters. Lincoln Blockade is a great, mellow, smooth black coffee. I like it in the morning. It's not quite a slap you awake coffee, but it's a nice second cup for me. So the Herrera Esteli Miami, a little bit about this cigar. We are smoking the Robusto Extra, which is a 5x52. It retails for $13.25 here at Union Cigar Hanover. While a box of 10 will set you back $119.25, which is like getting a free cigar. And we are bringing you Burn Line Podcast from the Hot Box, the smoky back room where deals are cut, where mafias are run, and where regimes are toppled, in the Blanco Lounge of Union Cigar Hanover, Pennsylvania, USA. North American continent, Western Hemisphere. Solar system.
Year of our Lord 2023.
Year of your Lord. So, why don't we go ahead and give this cigar a clip? And I'm just looking at it, and I'm really fascinated by this wrapper. It's sort of rich and oily and nut brown, kind of like if you take a walnut and polish it against the side of your nose.
But also not like, color-wise, not super consistent. Like
It is not.
It gets lighter and darker in some areas.
Yep. Light splotch.
Yep.
So, it already grabbed my eye, and I have taken off one band. So there's two bands on this, the Herrera Esteli by Drew Estate band, and then the Miami band. I took off the Miami band. I didn't have any trouble removing it, which is important to me. And we'll see how it goes if I have to take the other band off.
Are you a take your band off right away, or you like to wait until your cherry gets down to the end?
I like to wait unless it depends a little bit on like the size and construction of the cigar. If it's starting to expand, I won't wait, because then when I try to take it off, it pops.
Right.
So we're going to go ahead and clip our cigars. The official cutting of the Herrera Esteli by Drew Estate Miami. I'm going to Miami. And we remind you to clip your cigar with authority. No limp-wristed clipping allowed. So we're doing the tap the cigar on the back of your hand thing. Learned that last week from Nick. And
have you done it yet?
Surprising result. Yeah, I've been doing it ever since. And you can see the little dot'll come out.
Yep.
And
you get almost no tobacco in your mouth.
Almost no tobacco. I hate that when I take the first couple of puffs and then I'm scraping my thumbnail across the tip of my tongue because I got little dottle in there.
Yep.
All right, we are all clipped up, and our official lighting, I am using an electronic 3-flame jet lighter from Perdomo Cigars. Quite hefty. Have you felt that? Feel that lighter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's substantial, right?
Wow.
It's got a little pop out.
Yeah, punch at the bottom?
Yep, punch at the bottom. It's a little hard to adjust the flame.
What the hell is that?
That's to charge it. It's electronic.
Wow.
Yeah, you can recharge it. So
we are so futuristic.
Definitely. So I've got the Jetson lighter. And is that a single flame torch?
Single flame Blanco logo.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab one of those.
Yeah.
Love single flame torches, except for when they get too hot. And as always, we remind you to toast your cigar, not roast your cigar.
Toasted, not roasted. Toasted, not roasted. Toasted, not roasted.
It's toasted. I get it.
The spark on those always reminds me of like a taser.
Don't tase me, bro. And Nick will be seeing a therapist all next week for the terror that the sound of this electric the lighter brings him. Reminds you of your uncle's basement, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll probably do a segment one time on like lighting your cigar. We talked about like methods of lighting, but not actually lighting it. You know, like talked about matches and cedar strips and all of that.
Yeah, I was thinking about too. Like you're supposed to hold the flame a certain distance away from the.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's important info. I've seen people shove their lighter into the foot of their cigar, or vice versa.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was smoking with a friend last week, and he jammed that Gordo into his mouth. I mean, an inch deep in his mouth, clamped his teeth down, and shoved that 3-flame jet torch a quarter inch away and just blasted it. And
Yeah.
the whole foot just
Puff the whole time. You got the large flame coming up off the foot of the cigar.
looked like a shock of wheat on fire.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like someone took Carrot Top and dipped his head in Vaseline and then just lit him on fire. So yeah.
Is Vaseline flammable?
Oh, don't ask me how I know. But yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is not an accelerant. It's like you would use it if you wanted a torch to burn for a long time.
Dude, this is really good. This is first 2 puffs, which in my opinion, John, are the best 2 puffs of the cigar.
If you toast it right.
Yes, absolutely.
If you don't, they're the 2 worst.
right? Yeah, exactly.
Agree.
This whole nub business. Nubs are a great cigar, but this whole notion that the last third is the best part of the cigar, I cannot stand by. I truly believe that the beginning of the cigar is the best. It's the most.
Virgin, pristine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then also your palate is typically cleaner.
Yep.
You know. Yeah. So I will tell you, this hits with a lot of strength right off the bat for me. Fair disclosure for all of you out there in podcast land, I always smoke the cigar ahead of time to make sure I'm giving you a fair shake, which is extra good today because I have a little bit of a head cold, which is why I sound the way that I do. And I probably will not be getting the flavors and enjoyment that I got last time. So send your positive vibes this way, and maybe I can clean up these sinuses over the weekend. But very strong. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think to your point, we both smoked the Lonsdale, the Lonsdale Deluxe, I should say, in anticipation of this episode. And now we're smoking, obviously, the Robusto Grande. So, or Robusto Extra, whatever they call it.
Yeah, both enjoyable sizes. I will tell you, though, for a cigar this powerful, I kind of like the smaller size. Haven't smoked it all the way yet, but that was one thing, I got down to the last third of the other one. I was like, I probably should have picked, this should have been a sit-down in the lounge cigar. I was trying to work on my kitchen, not in my kitchen because I'm married and I want to stay that way, working outside, cutting stuff for my kitchen, which I'm currently remodeling.
You do a lot of woodworking?
I do more like, I don't know, handyman and dick around stuff. But I did work on this ashtray for the podcast, so I've got a buddy with a, whatever it's called, lathe. So this is a solid piece of burl. I'm not sure that the wood that it came from. The burl is it's like a scab in the tree. It's the texture of the wood. So I can't tell by looking at it like what tree it came off of. So he turned it, and since you guys can't see out there, there's big chunks in it where it's just the raw natural finish. And then he did this process where we impregnate it with resin that kind of fills in all the little holes, and then turn it.
You inject it with resin?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and then you kind of cure it. And it sort of turns like at the same as the wood. Like it's a little bit of a different hardness, but it's close enough that you don't kind of screw up the wood most of the time. And then I just use my woodworking tools to carve in like the Burn Line podcast and Union and my little art logo. That's all freehand. I just scratched that in there and then dropped some India ink in. Yeah, it came out pretty nice.
For those listening, it looks awesome. It's got like some like leopard spot texture to it, a little bit. It's freaking cool.
And it weighs 17 pounds. Solid wood. Yeah. So it's a little shallow in the dish part because we started running into, you can see right here, these pretty big defects in the burl, and we were afraid it was going to blow up. The tool would catch. So we kind of left it there, and then it just has butcher block finish, which is like a beeswax. Well, it's like beeswax, so it's edible and, it's not poisonous or anything, but just gives it a kind of a smooth texture without it being like, glossy, like if you drop a varnish on it or something like that.
It should be pretty freaking durable with how heavy it is too, right?
I hope so. I mean, I'm not planning on driving over it with a truck or anything. So a little bit more about this cigar, and then we'll tell you what we're tasting. The wrapper is Ecuadorian Habano Oscuro. The binder is Ecuadorian Sumatra, and then the filler is Dominican and Nicaraguan leaf that is wrapped in the entubar style. So a little bit about that. It sort of, you bunch the leaves together, and it creates a much better draw. It's harder to do, which is probably why all of these cigars are only rolled by level 9 rollers from Cuba, but not in Cuba.
In Miami. And just to touch on the entubar rolling style, there are a couple different ways we like I can roll cigars. The bunchers bunch the cigars, right? So there's accordion style, book style, and then entubar is like the most time consuming. Mm-hmm. And they basically roll each individual leaf into a little
tube.
Yeah, right. Yeah, entubar means
tube.
Right, yeah. And it is generally best for draw and burn. But like I said, it's time consuming. It's not the easiest thing to do.
Well, I will comment on that. Beautiful burn line on this, right? You can see the 3 colors of the burn line, and it's burning, straight and well, but it's also a smoke bomb. Like, I'm getting plenty of smoke out of this. So I can tell starting out that the construction is excellent. Now, whether that is attributed to the entubar bunching or not, I don't know, because I just don't know. But it is burning really well, and I'm getting a good mouthful of smoke out of it.
Yeah, I've heard people describe the ash as stacking nickels. Mm-hmm. That's it was interesting to me. But yeah, Miami, El Titan de Bronze. So this cigar is hand rolled in Miami at the El Titan de Bronze factory, and the master blender for this cigar is Willie Herrera, hence Herrera Esteli. And Willie Herrera's mother-in-law is actually the owner of El Titan de Bronze.
Awesome. So nice connection there. And the original Herrera Esteli was like I think it was a trade show special by Drew Estate, and then turned into its own production line, and now it's like a sub-brand. So there's several Herrera Esteli cigars, right? I like all of them. The what is the Noriega? What's the
Norteño?
Norteño,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
And the Blue Label, the classic Nicaragua. And this is the latest addition to the line, right?
Yeah, there's one, I think, the Norteño's San Andreas wrapper, the teal colored band, the light blue is the Brazilian, mm-hmm. And then the red and white is, I think, a Habano. And then this one's the Ecuadorian Oscuro, right?
Yep. So, so far, strong. Kind of a big, bold body to it. A little surprising to me in the sense that if I branded a cigar as a Miami cigar, I would almost be expecting it to be more in the Cuban style. I mean, it is from Little Havana. Natural wrapper, lighter floral, but punchy. This is punchy, but it's also like dark, and the smoke to me is oily on the palate.
It's like it's not 9 a.m. It's heavy.
Yeah, this is a heavy smoke. This is an after your steak dinner. Probably not a breakfast cigar. I think I am tasting chocolate, which is pretty cool. And then I think there's like some kind of creamy nut in there. I'm not sure, maybe almonds or cashews type of thing. And that's kind of the limit to my palate today. My notes from the last cigar, I was tasting some kind of sweet cedar. Like if you took a cedar strip and you just kind of like rubbed some sugar water on it. Almost tasted like that. I think my palate's a little blunted today, so the bolder notes are kind of taking over for me.
Just a fantastic taste overall of like this dark sweetness and well aged tobaccos. There's no rush to this. This fermented, cured as long as it needed to, and it tastes fantastic.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the feel of the smoke in my mouth. It's kind of chewy and oily, and rich is the, like, if I had to pick a word, it's a rich cigar.
Yeah, you hit it on the head.
Really, like, this is like the, I don't know, if I compared it to a dessert, this is like a German forest cake, like a dark, rich, heavy cigar with surprising notes of sweetness.
Yeah.
Which I think comes from the fermentation and aging process.
Yeah. And on the band here, I think it's so funny. It says handmade at El Titan de Bronze, and then it reads the address of the factory, which is
that's
awesome.
cool.
So if you don't like it, go down
Write
there.
a letter. Postmark 2. El Titan de Bronze, 1071 Southwest 8th Street, Miami, Florida. Yeah, I don't know. I guess they just got tired of names. Like in New Orleans, it's the same way. Like you have these names of saints, like all this, Saint Charles, and then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, this is First Street. We ran out of names. So the north south are numbers and the east west are letters or something.
Yeah, I think Ocean City, Maryland is goes up to, I don't know, 180 or something.
Yeah,
like
like
that.
180th
Yeah.
Street.
Yeah.
Like, we are not going to put any more effort into this than we need to.
Yeah. Let's just start counting from one.
They just read the engineer sheet, the civil engineer. They're like, and this is street number 1. Yeah. We'll call it First Street.
First Street.
And you win the Imagination of the Year award.
At least they didn't call it. At least they didn't call it 1 street, 2 street, 3 street.
Well, it's funny because in Europe they have different ways of saying things than we do, and that's one thing that they do. Like we'll say First Street, they'll say 1 street. Same thing. Like we'll say, like King Charles the First, and they'll typically say King Charles I.
Yeah, I have heard that before.
Yeah.
It's so that like in Australia they call the elevator the lift. Mm-hmm. These kind of different, like around the world, these kind of different flavors that you get is super interesting.
That's one thing I like about smoking cigars is it's a little tour of one or several microbiomes. One if it's a puro or several from the same country. That's something that's interesting about growing cigar leaf. And you go to Nicaragua. It's a small country, as square mileage goes, but there's some very unique regions for growing tobacco there, and you can have like a Nicaraguan puro where you're almost exploring the country.
Yeah, and technology now, like with interactive maps on the internet, yeah, you can go. All right, you take a virtual tour. Right, we land in Managua. We go to Esteli. We travel to Jalapa. Right, Condega. We go to. Like there are volcanoes there.
Yeah,
mountains, like flat fields for miles and miles. It's unreal.
So here's something I came up with for all of you cigar marketers out there that listen rabidly to our podcast because it's the best one on the interwebs. I thought about that DBL and the QR code, which is pretty cool. And then I thought about the Perdomo wrappers, many of which are about 2 inches wide. And then I thought, what if you put a wrapper on your cigar? Not a wrapper, I'm sorry, the band. What if you put the band on there, about 2 inches wide, and it's divided into thirds, just like the cigar, and each third has a different QR code. And when you scan it, it brings you to a map. And here's where the tobacco came from, here's what you're tasting, that sort of thing. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, that's awesome. It needs to be I was having a conversation with a buddy actually the other day about how technology is going to affect the industry. Mm-hmm. Obviously, growing technique, it's going to improve, right? Hopefully, optimize the best growing techniques for certain tobaccos and whatnot. But it's really going to free up the flow of information for the consumer.
Right.
And so Oliva rolled this out a year or two ago where you scan the QR code and you saw a picture and a background of the woman that bunched and rolled your cigar.
Right. How cool is that?
Yeah, you're like looking at the face of the woman that like handmade the cigar for you, and so like stuff like that. Yeah, it's gonna be nuts what they can do.
Wait a minute. The woman in my picture looks suspiciously like Bubba. I think I got the wrong cigar. So then, we're going to be going through the boxes on the shelf with our, phone, like checking the QR code and getting the hot chick. Yeah. This cigar got rolled by the hot chick. I'm going to buy this one.
The old thighs of a virgin. that old saying.
All you have left on the shelf is cigars rolled by Jose. You're going to have to discount those. Yeah, I like the idea of, expanding the experience of smoking, with technology. And I know there's a lot of younger guys getting into cigars. And, it's one of those hobbies that almost anyone can pick up. It's not an inexpensive hobby. But when you compare it to restoring a muscle car or something like that, it's on the less expensive side. And, of course, there's a price range for everybody in the cigar world. And, some of the younger folks, like, this is what we expect. It's kind of what we grew up with. And sort of expanding that experience to, in the old days, I mean, we had, like, old dog-eared books we would thumb through, about different regions that tobacco was grown in and stuff like that. And, then the internet came along. Now we're on our smartphone and we're like, oh, what is this size? What is this tobacco? I've never heard of this guy or whatever. And it's like, well, just throw it on the cigar, throw it right on the packaging. Make it quick and easy for folks to sort of do their research, and it enriches the conversation too. Like, who is Willie Herrera?
Right. Yeah, and it's the story about these cigars, about almost every cigar, is close to inseparable from the cigar itself. Mm-hmm. You almost have to tell the story with the cigar.
The cigar is the family story.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's because, we talk about, it's art. It's, it's inspired by real life events. And so, yeah, they put their passion into it.
Yeah.
And it becomes more of a living thing and less of a $14 brown stick.
Right. And so when I smoke this, which, again, I would describe as a luxurious experience, right? Considering the sort of rustic nature of the presentation, I would put this in my pile of luxury smokes, right? And it's enjoyable. But what the start of the journey, like at some point, somebody said, this is a good seed, and this is good soil, and this is good climate, and put that all together to grow a plant. Which grew a plant, and now they're doing hybrids and stuff, right? And it starts all the way with the seed in the soil, and then, what is it, like 300 pairs of hands touch your leaf before it touches your mouth, right?
Yeah, roughly, right.
So this is a human story wrapped up in a very pleasurable hobby, and if we could kind of use technology to bring that to the forefront, I mean, to me, it enhances the experience.
Yeah, 100%. And with branding in capitalism, we see Elon Musk, for example. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk does not make your Tesla.
No. No.
He certainly has a large part in running the company, but he is not on the floor making sure that everything goes into your car that you need to go into it. And I think part of a couple movements in the cigar industry right now are about, we know who owns the company, but who's making the cigars.
Right.
And that's important too.
And at some point, Willie Herrera bunched these leaves together, not this cigar, but one just like this, and tweaked it and then waited for the ammonia to leave and tried it again, and it's a 3-month process, 6-month process, and said, yep, stamp of approval, right?
Yeah, let's make thousands of them.
How can we make 1,000 of these? Yeah. So I'm leaving my ash on the cigar because it's such a compact and beautiful ash. I'm just going to see what happens with that. And having said all that, it is time for our tobacconist tip of the week. Nick, take it away.
And now your tobacconist tip of the week with Nicholas McCann.
So my tobacconist tip of the week this week is, plainly said, once you buy the cigar from us, it is yours. What does that mean? So I get a lot of questions about from first-time smokers, I should say, and they say, "Okay, what do I do with it?" And
Put one end in your mouth and light the other end. Do not get those two steps mixed up.
Yeah. My smart ass self says usually, you can take it outside and snap it in half if you want, and they don't like that answer. But that's the truth. And so specifically, today I want to talk about when to stop smoking your cigar. So we're sitting here smoking these Miamis, and if John feels like he's derived enough pleasure from this cigar, and he no longer wants to smoke more of it, even though he's about 30% of the way through, 25% of the way through, that's his prerogative. He can do that.
And I do that, don't I?
Yeah, you do. I've seen you do it before. He leaves like half cigars and ashtrays and stuff. But that's fine. Like, you got to go. You feel good about the cigar and you don't want to smoke anymore. Like, that's fine. You buy it and it's yours. You do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. You know, the point of this hobby is the pleasure, the enjoyment. And I'll have times when I'm done. I'm just done, right? This is knowing what satiety is, right? And you know, I'll give you an example. Like, you're eating dessert, you know, cheesecake. Or do you have the second slice of cheesecake? Like, knowing, okay, when am I done? Like, I derive pleasure from the. If I keep going, it's kind of going to ruin it, you know. And it's the same thing with cigars. Like, you are smoking the cigar, you might get to the point where you're like, I'm just done. Like, if I smoke more, I'm going to get a headache or get dizzy, or I'm just done, you know. It's okay to just put it down and walk away. Do not mash it out. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Just let it burn out on its own.
And this is not me endorsing or advertising every single person to smoke only half of their cigar and leave. If you want that cigar to burn your fingers and you want to smoke every inch of that cigar,
like when you're smoking a Sobremesa.
Yeah.
Stick a pin in it.
Yeah, by all means. Because it's yours. But, like, don't let anyone else dictate when you're done with your cigar. Is the summation of the tip this week.
It is yours to enjoy. So jumping back into this cigar, I've got maybe 1.25 inches of ash on this thing. It's holding together well. I mean, I can tell the construction is top notch. You can see those stacked dimes right there. So as far as flavors goes, has anything changed for you? What are you tasting?
It is right now I'm still on that first third sweet nut. Rich is a perfect word I think you used to describe it. Like a dark chocolate mousse, almost, or like a sweet Starbucks frappa, whatever. Little chocolate mocha, whatever. Oh, there goes the ash.
There goes the ash. Look at that, man. What a beautiful ash.
So I love the ash that you can, after it falls off, you can pick it up.
I'm being a total nerd because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you could pick that. Yep. He's picking up the ash. That's awesome.
I can pick it up in a chunk.
Yep.
Yeah, great construction on this one. I'm getting a great burn. Looks like yours is a little uneven. Touching that up a little bit.
It's okay. It's my fault.
So I don't know if this is related to my head cold or Dayquil, but I am getting a little bit of a citrus hint in it. And again, yeah, like chocolate-covered espresso beans. There's still that kind of sweet wood component. I'm not getting like leather. So really well balanced to me. Like the flavors just work so well together. It's a little bit of a contrast from last week where there was a lot of flavors, but they were all fighting each other.
Yeah.
This one, there's like 3 flavors or 4, and they all work together perfectly.
Yeah. They didn't try to do too much. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting a lot of there's definitely wood. I'm not getting a lot of earth though.
No.
Not a lot of dirt.
No, you're right.
Which is interesting. It's so we talk about, I guess, what are we getting from the cigar? We never talk about what are we not getting from the cigar. Mm-hmm. Like, what can we rule out? And there's certain things I think, like there's no burnt taste to this.
Right.
It's more on the sweet side.
Yep.
It's less
of that char flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think looking at the cigar and reading the contents, like what it's made out of, particularly with the Ecuadorian, I would kind of expect like an earthy note. It's not there, which is cool.
Because this is Habano, yeah. Habano, typically, in my experience, has given me a spice,
Yeah,
and an earth, more on the mild side. But this is just it's a very dark Habano, very dark Habano.
and the binder is Ecuadorian Sumatra, so that probably contributes to the sweetness a little bit. Yeah, I like the flavor, and I think refined, is probably a good word. Like, when somebody takes like a cannoli and then they put like rainbow sprinkles on it, you're like, oh come on, man, like you overdid. Like they didn't do that. This is like a regular cannoli or something where hundreds of years of practice has resulted in, like, this is a refined product. All the flavors go together, the textures go together, good enjoyable experience. That's what this feels like. It feels like decades and decades of experience kind of just rolled up and condensed into this refined, luxurious product.
Yeah, they've honed this one in. This is probably exactly what they intended this to be.
Mm-hmm. Still getting good smoke output. Again, my burn is pretty close to perfect. So talking about the presentation, I really like the brown bands on this with the gold. It continues sort of the brand language of the Herrera Esteli sub-brand for Drew Estate. It has sort of a rustic finish, which is interesting because it's not really a rustic cigar per se. The box is a plain wood box. It is wood, it's not cardboard or pressboard or anything like that. So it sort of has this, semi-blue collar, no nonsense, here's a cigar type of look to it with just enough refinement, sort of like a Cadillac, like a Cadillac Escalade. Like, this is a truck. It's a nice truck, which is a little interesting to me because I think that this could be presented as a much finer brand and fly off the shelves, and it could probably even go at a higher price point. It is not cheap, so $13.25 for a 5x50. That's on the steep side, probably related to, it's made in America. Like, we have to pay certain wages here. I'm sure that contributes to the price on it. But overall, the presentation is attractive. I like it. I like it, in the shelf with the rest of the products. It nestles in there nicely. Nothing too fancy or pretentious about it.
I believe that the bands were rebranded, so the black part that we're seeing used to be red.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that actually is the color scheme of the
original.
Yeah, and now they've adopted that to be one of the Lanceros. I think it's the broadleaf Tienda Exclusiva Lancero, the Willie Herrera one.
Yes, Lanceros. We won't get into that topic.
Nope, I learned my lesson.
Highly controversial. On this episode, we talk about Lanceros. Love them or hate them. Vote below. Now we're going to have to actually do that.
Yeah. P.O. Box.
You can mail all of your hate mail to 1071 Southwest 8th Street. Yeah, so enjoyable smoke. Again, this is not a morning smoke, I don't think. Not for me, definitely. Great dessert smoke, it seems like it would be. Great lounge smoke. So we like to talk about, the occasion for the cigar. This is not a fishing boat cigar. This is not a doing yard work cigar.
Not an everyday.
It's not an everyday cigar. I think
it's a treat.
It's a treat, yeah. That's a great word for it. And, sitting down with a friend or two, but not like a football party or something. Like, this is a focus on the cigar because it's worth it. It's worth the attention and savoring the flavors after dinner, with a close friend or handful of friends, something where you're treating yourself.
I wouldn't put this in celebration tier, though. I wouldn't put this in like wedding night tier.
Sure, yeah. Or anything where I think I wouldn't put it in any tier where you're distracted by something else.
Yeah.
It almost has to be the centerpiece of what you're doing.
Yeah, rightfully so.
On the other hand, you could smoke it, in any situation where you can kind of sit down. It's definitely, I wouldn't want to be expending any energy because I think it would knock me on my ass. But it is approachable. I don't think that you have to be like an expert or have a super refined palate to appreciate the cigar. It's very approachable. The flavors are smooth and rich and, not so like subtle and nuanced, that you have to be a master taster or something to get a lot out of the cigar.
You think it's changing a lot for you? I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, it's not changing a lot. It is changing.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a little more like spice in it now. I should say I'm getting a little bit because I wasn't before.
Yeah.
And again, a little more citrus. So I heard something interesting about that. And it has to do with wetting the leaves on the pilon. A lot of companies have different methods for doing that. They'll add stuff to the water, and there is a rumor, which, is a rumor, right? So might not have any truth to it all, but the rumor is that Padron uses chocolate water.
Oh, really?
On their leaves, yeah. But one of the common things they used to put in the water in old Cuba was, citrus, like lemon juice or orange juice. And part of that is it cuts down on any potential, it's basically a natural fungicide.
Yeah.
Right? Keeps things from growing.
Kind of a preservative.
Yeah, a little bit. Anyway, so that citrus in the water, that's what we often call spice when we're tasting cigars. And it makes sense when you think about it because you've probably never done this because, you're reasonably well adjusted. But if you just bit into the rind of a lemon,
I have done that. I was going to say.
What does it taste? Yeah, I did too. I was like 5, but, but if you bite into that citrus peel, it does have like that spicy kind of flavor.
Oh, it bites back.
Yeah, it bites back. Yeah. So obviously there are some tobaccos, particularly, Nicaragua's famous for having spicy tobacco. And then the method, like sun-grown, you can have more spice. But some of the spice that we taste is often from the way the leaf is conditioned in the pilon. And anyway, I heard that somewhere, thought it was pretty cool, thought I would share it.
That's reminding you of this cigar?
Yeah, because I'm picking up like some citrus and spice now, and I just wonder if that's what it's coming from.
So it's there's like lime citrus, lemon citrus, orange citrus, grapefruit. Grapefruit's got like that sour. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can kind of see it though. I'm getting it. You put it in my brain, and now I'm tasting it.
Yeah, just a little bit. Still have that like sweet cedar in the background, and I think chocolate is pretty dominant. And it's not like a dark chocolate or bitter. Like it's not milk chocolate, but it's semi-sweet chocolate maybe. Sweeter than a lot of. It's not cocoa.
Yeah. Do you ever think about how the senses affect each other? Our human senses affect. Mm-hmm. So like we're looking at this wrapper and it looks like chocolate.
Yeah.
And we're putting it in our mouth like we would with chocolate, and we're tasting chocolate.
But it also kind of looks like a dog turd. So,
it does. Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't say that.
Yeah, I definitely like the experience, and I try to, when I am smoking my cigar, involve all of my senses, and that's something that I got from wine tasting. So that's why I look at the presentation, and that's why I feel the wrapper. Like this one has that beautiful fuzzy velvet feel to it that comes from proper aging.
It's almost like a soft, waxy feel.
Yeah. And you can see the oil shine on it, which is cool. It's not super oily, but it's oily. The only sense, I guess, that I don't really use is my sense of hearing. There's not really anything other than taking the cellophane off. There's not really an involvement there.
Yeah, and it's some of my best experiences smoking cigars have been in a dimly lit room with like not a lot going on.
Like right here in the hot box.
Yeah, honestly, our senses are fully engaged. Most of our senses are fully engaged right now. So this is not a perfect situation and that's why we smoke it beforehand.
Right. Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, if you're at a Super Bowl party, that cigar is not going to be the same experience, right? You're distracted by everything.
And dude, especially if other people are smoking other cigars in that room,
Yeah.
you're smelling those cigars. You're not solely tasting the one you're smoking. You're tasting other people's cigars too.
And I think the strength has gone down a little bit. Like, I would go mid-full at this point.
Weirdly, normally it gets stronger.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think this one is getting less strong as we smoke it down, which is kind of cool because I think I can smoke it all the way down. If it had stayed at that original strength, I probably would have put it down. So that's where we're at with the Herrera Esteli. Coming up, we will introduce our new cigar ranking system that is about to take the world by storm. But before we get there, it's time for what really grinds my gears.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Nick, what grinds your gears today?
So, from my house to this store, there are 2 main roads. And both of those roads this past week have been partially shut down due to road construction. So Monday I go and I'm like, we're doing construction this week. I'll take the other road. And then Tuesday I get on the other road and it's the same story. And
yeah, especially considering there's like, this is small town USA. Like, we know where the towns are, and we know like people work in this town and live in this town, and all of that. And it's like, come on, planners. Like, did you really have to work on both of these roads at once? Like, half the population is going this way and half's going that way.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, difficult job. A lot of respect for the guys that are out there in the elements. It's freaking March still.
And gals.
And gals, yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very inconvenient, and I'm not good with time. I don't have time to be waiting behind this guy flipping a stop and slow sign.
Right.
And
I want it all. I want perfect roads, and I don't want to wait for them.
Yeah,
Give it to me now.
I'm trying to go 60 the whole way here, so I'm not late.
Yes, agree. Grinds my gears too. What grinds my gears this week is cheap consumables, or as I call them, poor potables. So there's stuff that and when I'm talking about consumables, I'm talking about potables, things you put in your mouth, right? And the older I get, the less time I have for junk. Like if I'm going to actually eat this or smoke this or whatever, it needs to be of a certain quality. And the days of like eating a half frozen Hot Pocket just because it's lunchtime at work, it's done. Like, I would rather go hungry at this point than sort of waste my senses on something cheap. So, maybe I'm being petty or spoiled or selfish here, but, give me real food, give me real drink. Jaeger and Jack Daniels doesn't cut it anymore. I want a real whiskey. I want to taste it. Same thing with my cigars. So I do smoke inexpensive cigars, and we had an episode on that. But I'm past that point of consuming cheap stuff. And there's way too much of that in the supermarket and not enough like real food, if you ask me.
They're all processed.
Yeah.
Not natural, preservative.
Super processed.
Yeah.
Jackson's food,
Yeah.
Here's your little pouch. Soak it in water for 35 minutes and then pop it in the microwave.
Yeah.
Out comes a turkey.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think that comes with maturity too, right? You're at a point in your life where you don't have time for that stuff, and you can afford time-wise, financially, right, to have the better things.
Yeah, definitely there's a correlation, I think, between like my disposable income and not buying cheap stuff. But
because I was in college in the past 5 years, so ramen is my friend. But we've all been there. We've all like slummed it and had like ramen or instant mac and cheese or whatever, and
right. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, don't insult my palate.
Yeah.
Get away from me.
Right.
I do still like ramen. Don't tell anybody. But that's not cheap. It's just inexpensive, right? Yeah. We'll make that distinction.
Yep.
No, definitely.
Financially smart, economical. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to this restaurant in Dallas. It was I was staying in this luxury suite down the road from where the Mavericks play, like on the 5th floor. And so I could kind of go out on the balcony and see like what was available. And across the street, there's this, Japanese ramen shop. So I go over there, and I got to tell you, it was freaking amazing, but it was also expensive. And I'm like, I can't believe they're charging this much for ramen. But then I ate it, and I was like, well, now I see why they're charging this much for the ramen. Had like a boiled egg and all that stuff in there. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like in American culture, ramen's been bastardized.
Yeah.
By the freaking Instant Cup noodles.
Right.
Yeah, like there's an actual art to the Eastern cultures making ramen.
Yeah, I mean, the ramen that we get, Top Ramen or whatever off the shelf, like that's your Kraft mac and cheese.
Yeah.
But there's real mac and cheese, and it's really good.
Handmade noodles.
Yeah. I'm sure it's exactly the same. Got a bunch of Japanese people listening to this podcast, like those poor ignorant bastards. Yeah. We'll show you real food. Yeah. So it is time to return to our cigar, and flavor hasn't changed much for me. I'm still getting good smoke output. Again, the strength has diminished some. My burn is nearly perfect. Looks like your burn is a little less so. Great ash. What did you get, 1.5 inches off of yours?
Yeah. Despite my a little uneven burn, the ash still held very well.
Yeah, beautiful. So we're introducing a new ranking system for cigars. And fair disclosure, we want this ranking system to be different from everybody else because we don't want any confusion. So let me walk through how we're going to rank our cigars going forward. And then we're hoping that you listeners can go ahead and smoke the same cigar and come up with your own ranking. So we have 5 categories, and we're going to rank each category on a scale of 1 to 10, and then we'll have a combined score at the bottom. Now, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that the maximum score, a perfect score in every category, would result in a 50. And we did that on purpose because everybody else is ranking their cigars on a scale of 0 to 100, and we don't want you to confuse our rankings with any other ranking, partly because you would bring into, your assessment of our ranking what those other rankings mean. And as far as we know, the other rankings don't include, these 5 dynamics, each getting scored individually. So here are the 5 categories that we're going to rank this Herrera Esteli Miami cigar: presentation, price, construction, flavor, and experience. And you'll notice that, there's some subjective elements in there because cigars are subjective, and we kind of expect that if you are ranking your own cigars that you will get a different score because of that. And so this is a great exercise for all of us to kind of sharpen our hobby and our experience. So why don't we start out with presentation? And we talked about the cigar is a kind of a dark brown, oily, fuzzy wrapper with this gold and brown double band, the Herrera Esteli band and then the Miami band. And it's in a sort of plain wooden box. Good branding, fits in with the rest of the design language for the Herrera Esteli sub-brand. Nick, what are you thinking? Presentation 1 to 10.
So I think black is just a great color. I think that the smart cigar manufacturers match band color with the color of the wrapper of the cigar. And I think this one, because the wrapper is like this darker
Oscuro.
Yeah, chocolatey, right. Yeah, chocolatier kind of hue. Like the black matches up nicely, blends in, and then the gold pops. So I give it a 9 out of 10.
All right, so Nick's going with 9. Bold move. I'm going to go with a 7. I think the presentation is good. I think some things where it misses. One, I'm not sure it matches the experience of the cigar. I think the cigar is quite a bit more luxurious and fine than the presentation. But they hit all the right notes. A real wood box. The box has got like black on it. The band is actually like a dark chocolate color. There's a little mismatch there. Not holding it against them, but that's why I give it a 7. So let's move to price. And again, this is a 5x50, and it retails for $13.25 here at Union Cigar, Hanover, Pennsylvania. Nick, what are you thinking for price?
So when I look at price, I look at not how high is the dollar value, but does the quality match the price tag? So if you hand me a $30 cigar and it smokes like a $30 cigar, right? Price is 10 out of 10. And in this case, I think $13.25 is a very fair price for the cigar, and I did give it a 10. It doesn't. They don't charge 13 and it smokes like a $7 cigar. Obviously, bonus points if it smokes like a $20 cigar and it's only $10, but I gave it a 10.
All right. So yes, $13.25 is steep for this much tobacco. Given the enjoyment experience that I'm getting out of the cigar, I'm gonna give this a 9 on price for the same reason. So it's probably not a cigar, as we mentioned, that you're going to be smoking every day anyway. I don't think it's probably affordable for an everyday smoke if you wanted to. But what you get out of it is worth $13.25. So I'll give it a 9 on price. How about construction, Nick?
So I've had the two that I've had most recently of this blend have not been great in terms of the result of the construction and my interaction with the construction. So I'm giving it a 7. I had some squish issues, we'll say, where they were really soft. And that could either be a product of humidification or underfilled, right? I'm more inclined to think it's a humidification. But yeah, not perfect in my opinion by any means.
So I've got great construction, great ash, great burn. I'm going to give this a 9 for my experience. It's not perfect, but it's pretty superb. And I give it an extra point there because of the 2-bar construction. That's hard to do, and it paid off, though. I mean, this smokes really well, and I'm getting a good mouthful of smoke. Like I said, the ash is beautiful, and my cigars have both burned pretty straight. It's not a perfect burn line, but it's close. And our fourth category is flavor. Nick, 1 to 10 on flavor.
Flavor on this one is great. This is one of those I think is subjective, more subjective than maybe others. But yeah, the flavor of this cigar fits my palate pretty well. I'd give it an 8.
8 on flavor for Nick. So for me, I've got some chocolate, cedar, almonds, little citrus, espresso bean. That is kind of in my wheelhouse for cigars. Again, like you said, subjective. Not too many flavors, but they play very well together. And I think we're the same there. I'm going to give it an 8 as well for flavor. And experience.
Can you elaborate on, maybe for the people listening, so is experience going to be a culmination of the first 4? Is it going to be overall smoking experience?
Yeah, so with experience, we're not talking about the environment, because that's not the cigar's fault. So if you're smoking this in a leaky rowboat with 14 screaming banshees, that's your problem. But yes, the overall cigar experience, and we probably all have that experience where we smoke a cigar and the flavor is okay, and the construction is okay, and the presentation is okay, but the overall experience, it just goes together. So this is definitely one of the most subjective elements here, but also one of the most important, because this is why we smoke cigars, right?
Yeah. And so with that being said, my experience is going to be an 8 out of 10. Like I said earlier, I don't think that this is... I think a 10 out of 10 experience cigar is one that you're going to smoke on your wedding night, on your wedding anniversary, your 50th birthday. And this is not the cigar that I would pull from my humidor. This is like Friday night, tough work week cigar. This is not, but this isn't like huge life milestone. And so I think that ties into the experience bit a bit. So 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, like a a treat cigar, a lounge cigar, not a celebration cigar per se. So my overall experience, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. It just all went together. The presentation of the cigar, the way that it feels in my hand, the way that it feels in my mouth, the smoke output and texture and the flavor and the burn, not having to care for it and just enjoy it. Overall, I will give that a 9. And so if we add those up, I should have gone to math class. I have got 16, 25, 33, 42 is my cumulative score for the Herrera Miami. And Nick is at 19, 26, 34, 42. So interestingly enough, we both came up with a score of 42 out of 50 for the Herrera Esteli Miami by Drew Estate. And I think we're going to make this a regular thing that we do.
Yeah.
Gives us a chance to kind of break down the different elements of the experience and sum it all up.
And I don't know about you, but quantifying a cigar experience in numbers is tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's one of those things where I appreciate cigar rankings, but helping grain of salt with that, like maybe the whole salt shaker.
Yeah. And there's another day where I smoke the cigar and everything's a 10. Uh-huh. And there's another day where I smoke the cigar and everything's a 5. And I think,
But I'm taking medication for that, so everything is all good. So that is just about a wrap on the show. Do you have any closing thoughts on this cigar, Nick?
So currently Union Cigar has this in 2 vitolas, the Robusto Extra,
Yeah.
and the Lonsdale Deluxe. And the Lonsdale hovers at around the same price point. It comes at $13.75. If you like a smaller gauge, the Lonsdale is the one for you. Other than that, this is not a cigar that every Drew Estate store can carry. We are extremely lucky here at Union Cigar to have privileges such as Liga Privada and allocated items like this Herrera Miami line. So get them while you can. But other than that, thanks for having me on.
And if you can't find it at your local brick and mortar, road trip. Come on over to Union Cigar Hanover. Great lounge here and gourmet coffee. All the amenities that make your cigar smoking experience what it should be. And also people, some wonderful people that come in here. And some other people too. So thanks for smoking this cigar with me. Great experience. And for all of you out there on the interwebs, thanks so much for joining us. See you next week.